Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Cloud Experts Unleashed. Today, we're going to be talking about what to do when you've collected data after a server crash and how to analyze that. So, with me today is one of our stars here at xByte Cloud. I have Dakota Clum. Dakota, welcome.
Hey Ryan, thanks for having me.
And my pleasure. So, in our last video, we showed how to collect this data. So if you haven't already looked at that video, please check it out. We'll include notes at the bottom of YouTube, so go check it out right there. We'll include links to get to that, and so you can kind of catch up and be part of this. So Dakota, I want to go ahead and jump into this and bring up the real star of the show, your computer screen, who's going to show everybody what
Perfect.
you're talking about and how to kind of analyze the thread dump and then the heap dump.
Perfect. Thank you, Ryan. Yeah, so as some of you may recall, in our last episode, we talked a little bit about, okay, ColdFusion has crashed. What we've seen in the past is a lot of users or end users will go in and just restart ColdFusion. There's actually some really critical log data and, analytics you can pull from a running ColdFusion process before you issue that restart. That could be the ColdFusion server logs because they're constantly rotating. There could be helpful information in there. There's actually information you can grab from the running process that contains the overall state of the heap environment, the overall state of the Java threads, what's running in ColdFusion at that time. So today we'll kind of look at analyzing a thread dump. You could see here in my folder I have a ThreadPrint.tdump, which is a Java thread dump file from that running ColdFusion process before I restarted it to presumably resolve my issue. But now I want to understand, okay, why did that happen? How can I prevent it from happening moving forward? You'll see as we kind of jump into this file, it's a little overwhelming when you just look at all the data that's thrown at you. It's really important to know that there can be helpful information in here that helps you track down an issue. Something that we're familiar with in the ColdFusion landscape is that ColdFusion as a script is typically running in two file types. It could be a .cfc or a .cfm. A trick I've learned when analyzing a thread dump is, okay, one, where are my application files located? And two, what kind of files am I running? Do I have a lot of CFM executions? Do I have a lot of CFC or both? What I can do is I can look for a keyword like .cfm in this thread dump and kind of click through the various findings, and I can see right away that there's a thread that was running at the time of ColdFusion being crashed or unresponsive, and I can see it's a full Java. It's a thread dump for that specific thread, and I can see what's going on in the stack. As I kind of follow up the stack, you'll see here that I have a ColdFusion template, a stuck.cfm, which is definitely what caused the problem in this case, but we'll talk a little bit about how you can learn more about what may cause that problem. So right now I have a hunch that this script could be related, but there's some more information I could gather from this. Like, is that script being ran a lot? So I see, okay, the path to my website. If I go and look for that stuck.cfm, throughout the entire thread dump, there's thousands of lines in here. I can actually see that it's been referenced multiple times throughout this thread dump. And as we kind of look through it, we can see there's various, CF thread tag, there's various Java threads that are hanging on this specific script. If I took it a level further, I could actually look in the home directory, which is where my site resides. And I could say, okay, what scripts or threads are hanging on anything in the home directory, which is where all my application files are. And you'll see that there's one common culprit. It's that stuck.cfm file. So right away, I know that there's something behaving in that file or occurring within that file that's causing my application to degrade, whether it be over time, instantaneously. These scripts could be associated with a lot of things. I've seen it hanging on CF query tags. It could be remote HTTP calls. It could be CF threads as seen kind of in this thread, and this thread stack. You can see here that, kind of what's being invoked. So use this tool to your advantage, or this data to your advantage when you're looking at, okay, what was ColdFusion doing whenever my process actually crashed, or what might have caused it to crash. And of course, if I went and investigated this non-suspicious file name called stuck.cfm, of course I would find something that ultimately caused my ColdFusion service to crash. But again, it could be anything. So it could be remote calls, CF query executions. I've seen it all. So that's kind of what I have on the thread dump portion. I'd also like to talk a little bit, Ryan, about the heap dump analysis, which is another item we collected during our pre-restart diagnostics collection. And you'll see here I have a HeapDump.hprof file. And this is actually a snapshot of Java's memory, or in this case, ColdFusion's memory before I restarted it. So you have to keep in mind, every time you restart a ColdFusion process, all of these files, or these logs, or the relevant threads that were running at that time, they're going to disappear. And you're not going to find much helpful information that's going to help you prevent it moving forward. So what we'll do is we'll analyze the content of this heap dump to see if we can isolate, okay, maybe I'm running out of memory, Java heap space. Maybe I do have a bunch of stuck threads that are causing issues. So we'll go into a tool I like to use personally, which is called the Memory Analyzer tool by Eclipse. And we'll go ahead and open that here. Takes just a couple seconds to open. Now, mind you, there's several tools that out there in the world that you can use to analyze these Java heap dumps. Eclipse is just a personal preference. So I'll go ahead and open my heap dump. You'll see it automatically finds my extension that ends in .hprof. It recognizes it as a heap dump, and it will immediately start analyzing this data. And we'll give it just a few seconds here. Now, keep in mind, my heap dump is very small. Typically, when you're dealing with some kind of memory exhaustion, it's going to be the total size of your Java heap environment. So when we're talking, multiple gigabytes, this file can really grow in size. So right away, you'll see I've generated an overview. I can see that there's one singular object that's taking up a lot of space. For those of you who are already getting familiar with reading Java stack traces, or just thread dumps in general, you'll see right away it's pointing out a thread that's presumably running in ColdFusion that's responsible for taking up so much of this object size, or so much of this Java heap space environment. Under reports, I can generate a leak suspect report, which surprisingly, it pulled the biggest object in memory, which is that same thread we were just talking about. You can see that it was responsible for consuming about 81% of our total Java heap space environment. And in the ColdFusion context, that can cause the application to severely slow down. It can cause it to crash altogether. And this data is gone once you restart ColdFusion. So you will never know that the script is necessarily the culprit. So we can go here and click Cease Stack Trace. And again, it's just like the Java thread dump that we were analyzing just a moment ago. I can go and look at this thread dump and say, okay, what script or what part of this stack trace is suspicious? In this case, I know right away that it's our oom.cfm file. That was the file that is responsible, line 26, ultimately for exhausting all of that Java heap space. Now, if I was to go and look at that file, you would see something that could, be invoking a ton of memory. It could be there's a variety of reasons that a ColdFusion service could run out of memory or Java heap space. In this case, it could be due to abnormal sessions or session sizes that are exhausting your space. It could be a CF query that you're caching in memory that's actually larger than the total size or total threshold of your Java heap space environment. So you do have this tool at your disposal. I can go and analyze that script or review that script at this point to say, to see what it was doing and what kind of tuning adjustments I can make for it. That's a little bit about heap dumps. I want to talk a little bit more about just some of the native logs that are available in ColdFusion. You'll see now that I opened that heap dump in memory analyzer tool, it generated a bunch of other files related to parsing that. But if I look in my, let's just say, ColdFusion error log, within ColdFusion, these logs are constantly rotating. So whenever that ColdFusion crashes happen, it can be helpful to capture this information. It does, contain helpful info. Let's say if I wanted to go and find if my Java heap space was being exhausted, if I didn't have that heap dump handy, let's say, I could look for a string like out of memory and find all instances of that within my document. And I could say, okay, I've been, encountering regular out of memory events due to Java heap space. Um, maybe it's time for me to collect a heap dump before I perform my next restart so I can actually determine the root cause. So keep that in mind. There's other files like the HTTP log. If you're doing a bunch of outbound remote requests, they could be getting hung. They could have really, slow response times, and they could be taking up, a lot of resources from your ColdFusion service. Um, so yeah, that's a little bit of the information you can analyze, kind of how you can go about analyzing it. Obviously, it gets much deeper depending on um, the cause of your issues. I've seen thread dumps, for example, where there's thousands of stuck threads or hundreds of stuck threads. So really what you're looking for in these is patterns. Do you see one specific script or one specific tag or remote call that's responsible for these slowdowns or buildups in request? And same goes for heap dumps. You're really looking for patterns. That leak suspects report can really tell you a lot as soon as you open it, just based on what object in memory is using most of your heap space environment. So, okay, Ryan, I'll pause there. Any questions?
No, lots of great information. So thank you very much for all of that, Dakota.
So,
A lot of gold in the last few minutes of you kind of going over all this stuff. So I hope that everyone enjoyed this, and I hope that they can take some of this and help figure out when things crash. Now, Dakota, I know a lot of times we do our pre-show production. We talk about a lot of things, but
yeah,
as you were talking, I thought of a question, and we'll kind of throw it out there. I
sure.
know I didn't prep you for this, so we'll see this as off the cuff. So,
Yeah,
Dakota, is there anything people can do to be more proactive? So instead of only looking at when things crash, can they look for anything in these log files on a regular basis to look for patterns of something that may produce crashes in the future?
sure. Yeah, that's a great question, Ryan. So I think that really comes down to like your monitoring and observability platforms. There's tooling native to Java where you can actually plug in like a JMX connection and see, how's my heap space doing? Am I only using 50% utilization? Am I seeing a slow trickle or slow growth? Over time, that could be sign of an impending out of memory instance. So you can monitor your JVM environment, or really any environment for that matter, with tooling. Fusion Reactor is a popular one in the community that kind of does that for you proactively. Zabbix is another open source alternative or free alternative. So there's a lot of tooling out there that can really help you say, okay, it looks like my application's about to crash. How can I get ahead of this in advance? So that's a great question.
All right, excellent. So, guys, a lot of good stuff. While Dakota was presenting, we put a couple of things along the bottom to tell you how to grab your thread dump and your heap dumps, and we'll include those in the notes in YouTube as well, in case you guys didn't have a chance to write those down. But thank you very much, Dakota. A lot of great stuff just presented, and we'll continue this series of kind of helping you tune your environment and getting the most out of your CF environment. So, yeah, thank you very much, Dakota. Thank you for being here. And
Thanks, Ryan.
so for Dakota, for Ryan, we are signing off. Thank you and have a great day.
Thanks a lot.